So both Holland and Super appear in the book in one chapter, and that's because people always use them together. So even with online references or computer programs, it's always Holland and Super. It's like two different theories that just work well together. So you're always going to hear about them together, but they're really two separate theories. And so for the third edition of the book, we're actually going to separate them and give them both their own chapter. But right now they're in the same chapter. But we are going to separate them. They're the two most commonly used career theories, and that's why they're the two theories you must apply in your video to the assessment results, but you can apply other ones as well. So a little bit about Super. Born in Hawaii, grew up in Poland, following his dad who worked with the YMCA. He published into the 1990s, which is kind of incredible. His brother passed away in Poland, and I think that did impact his life quite a bit. Once again, his theory was also used in World War II, just like Holland. Super was one of the founding members, one of the first presidents of ACA, so the American Counseling Association. Remember, when we went over the history of counseling, much of it started out, especially in the schools, as career counseling. So when they began the American Counseling Association, one of the major focuses was on career counseling. He believed in developmental stages. So like Freud had some stages, psychosexual stages of development. You'll get all that in theories. I kind of align more with Erikson's stages of development. For one reason, Erikson moves from birth to death. So he thinks that we are continuously developing. We have stages throughout our entire lifespan, whereas Freud ends his stages at adolescence. And so Super also believed that he looks at all of the stages of development, but rather than focusing on physical and emotional development, he focuses on career development, okay? So that's when we look at his theory now, think about him moving through stages of development, just not emotional development, more career development. Okay, so he'll actually say, Super's lifespan or life space theory. Sometimes it's called lifespan, sometimes it's called life space. But he's got 14 key assumptions. And I'm not really sure how the NCE or COMPS addresses these 14 assumptions, but I do know that Super is going to be on that exam. Holland and Super are always on those exams. We can just kind of go over these and talk a little bit about them. Number one, people differ in their abilities and personalities, needs, values, interests, traits, and self-concepts. So just in that one statement, we're looking at, okay, what does he see as components of, what goes into a person's identity and career? So we have personalities, we have personal needs, we have personal values, we each have interests, we have personal traits and self-concepts. And he'll get into each one of those in depth later on. But the point here, everybody's different, everybody's unique. And the combination of those things will lead us to a good fit in a career. Number 2 is people are qualified by virtue of these characteristics, each for a number of occupations. So just like in Jess's question earlier, it may not be a perfect fit in just one area, but you know, we have many characteristics, we have many talents, and we're probably qualified or would be a good fit for a number of different occupations. And we may have a number of different occupations throughout our lives. Number 3, each occupation requires a characteristic pattern of abilities and personality traits with tolerance wide enough to allow both some variety of occupations for each individual and some variety of individuals for each occupation. This is pretty similar to Holland's concept of traits. So remember, Holland was talking about each person has traits, each career path has traits, and we want a good fit, we want a good match. And the only thing here is he adds a few words. He adds abilities and traits, okay? So it's not just our personality. My personality might love, I don't know, some sport, okay? But I might not have the ability to make a living in that sport, okay? So my personality likes it, but I don't really have the ability to make a living at it, okay? So he includes, we have to have some ability and it has to fit our personality trait. Vocational preferences and competencies, the situations in which people live and work, and hence their self-concepts change with time and experience. So he believes we each have a self-concept, but that self-concept can be influenced and it can change. So sometimes we might have had a negative experience that could have contributed to some negative aspect of a self-concept. That might not be accurate. It may be the result of some environmental interaction or a poor experience we've had, or maybe sometime we weren't successful because we didn't have the support that we needed. But our self-concept can change, and we all hope that it changes in a positive direction. We also have to have an accurate self-concept. So, you know, I might believe I could be a rock star, but in reality, probably not, you know? So how accurate is that self-concept, you know? So the self-concept needs to be accurate. You know, same with on the other end of the spectrum. I might think, oh, I can't do that. But in reality, I've never had support to do whatever the career is. If I went and got training and I had emotional support, that it was encouraging, maybe that self-concept would be enhanced. And maybe I think, oh, maybe I could do that if I went to school and got training, you know? So our self-concept could be a little too negative or a little too egocentric, and we need to have an accurate self-concept as well. Number 5, this process of change may be summed up in a series of life stages, and you know, he'll go through the life stages. But it's kind of like developmental stages you might learn in the lifespan class, but it's just applied to career instead of emotional development. Number 6, the nature of the career pattern. While that is the occupational level attained and the sequence, frequency, and duration of trail and stable jobs, it's determined by the individual's parental socioeconomic level, mental ability, education skills, personality characteristics, career maturity, opportunities. And I find it very interesting sometimes that You know, each of us is born a unique human being, but some of us are born into very different environments. Some are supportive, some may be less supportive, some may have a lot of maybe high socioeconomic, some might be low socioeconomic. Think about all of the things that counselors might encounter. All of these things influence basically our job path, our career path. Sometimes we have more opportunities than others. Just a couple examples. When I went to Shippensburg, I had a lot of personal, Shippensburg University for undergrad, I had a lot of personal contact with my professors. They, you know, if a student was positive and really interested in what they were doing, they were pretty happy about that. And I had a lot of one-on-one time with the professors, and that's what I needed at that point. Fairly negative experience in high school, but that's what I needed then in my life, and it just happened to be that way. If I had gone to a larger school, professors might not have even known my name. I wouldn't have had that individual encouragement that I needed to change myself. Then, you know, when I went to graduate school in Princeton, I could see that the environment there gave me very specific opportunities because of proximity to others. So, for instance, if I was interested in something, like if I read a book, you know, in class, chances are the person who wrote that book was somewhere on campus. They believed in, you know, self-promotion, so they usually used their own books. But that access, that opportunity for me to talk with these people was a whole different kind of environment. Very different than Shippensburg University, but at those two different times in my life, it seemed like Shippensburg was what I needed at that point. And then as I grew and my self-concept became more positive and accurate, then I could move forward a little more. So all of these different things influence our self-concept and also our career path. And it's different for every single person, and it's not always fair. You know, you might have a genius who's born into a very different environment. They might be, you know, lower socioeconomic with not as much encouragement and a poor school district. Even though they're, you know, highly intelligent, they're not given the same opportunities, and that's not fair. But all we can do is help people through encouragement and self-understanding and assessments, and letting them know about more opportunities than they might have known about prior to career counseling. Even like, you know, careers and gender, you know, when I was talking with kindergartners as a school counselor, everybody's saying, what are you talking with kindergartners about careers for? And I'm like, yeah. So if we can open young children's minds to more equality and possibilities. So for instance, one of the things I would do is I would put up all these pictures of people different races, different sizes, different looks, different genders. And I would give the kids a list of careers, and I would say, okay, which one's in the military, which one's a pilot, which one's a nurse, which one's a doctor, which one is a hairstylist, and these were real people, with real careers. So I didn't just make them up. And they would guess, and of course they were all based on stereotypes. And but they would find out that, oh, well, the pilot is the woman, and this woman's a doctor, and this woman's in the military, and this man is a nurse, and this man is a hairstylist, So we're trying to break some of these gender role messages and stereotypes, and that expands the concept of possibilities, So these children might have never thought, oh, I could be fill in the blank. And now they're like, oh, maybe I could be that, So, all right. Number 7, success in coping with the demands of the environment and the organism in that context at any given life career stage depends on the readiness of the individual to cope with these demands. Sometimes individuals are not ready to cope with specific demands, either emotionally, or maybe they haven't been prepared, or maybe they don't have the training, whatever it might be. Sometimes they are, but that also has to be a match. Number 8, career maturity is a hypothetical construct. And, maturity in careers doesn't equal age maturity. I've been in a lot of careers when I was very young, and now I'm trying different things when I'm older, and I was pretty good at some things when I was young, but people didn't kind of give me that acknowledgement, because of my age. And there's some things I try now. A young person is so much better at it than I am. And, but I'm like, you go for it, or you teach me how to do it, asking my 12-year-old how to teach me an app. So, but it's the same in careers, Let's see, 9, development through life stages can be guided partly by facilitating the maturing abilities and interests, and partly by aiding in reality testing and in the development of self-concepts. I do think that, now he's combining self-concept and career maturity. So I do think that, you can have the ability and jump into a career, and you might be like really good at it. You might have a natural ability to do something, but there is a maturing process, how to be a good leader, how to work on a team, things like that. There's always something we can learn in some way to improve and grow in our careers. Number 10, the process of career development is essentially that of developing and implementing occupational self-concepts. So now he's talking about it's not only our self-concept, but it's an occupational self-concept. It's a synthesizing and compromising process in which the self-concept's a product of the interaction of inherited aptitudes, physical makeup, opportunity to observe, all kinds of different things. But here we're trying to match self-concept with occupation. And it's a process, I would say, especially of compromise, figuring out what is a good fit. One example would be, I always thought that, oh, well, maybe I'll be a clinical psychologist, and then after I talked with an old professor of mine, after I was a school counselor and had a private practice and talked, my old professor called me and he said, hey, there's this program. And I'm like, what's it in? And they're like, counselor education. And I'm like, my ego was getting in the way. And I'm like, yeah, I always thought like clinical psych, but, once I realized what actually, clinical psych takes 6 years. It's a lot of statistical research. It's not a lot of working with people. And talking with him, him asking me, well, what do you see yourself doing? And I saw myself working with people, and I liked counseling, and I liked teaching, and then we talked about, okay, well, this is what this program's like. This is what this program's like. This is what you'll be doing, and this is what you'll be doing in this other program. And I kind of had to let go of kind of that, I would call it an immature dream for clinical psych, just because it was kind of like, I don't know, lifted up by others, oh, clinical psych, it kind of has this status symbol by it, when in reality, this is what makes me happy. And I don't think I would be happy, in that area. So, but it was a process, All right. Work satisfactions. Well, process of synthesis of or compromise between individual and social factors. That kind of goes along with what I was talking about. 12, work satisfactions and life satisfactions. And we were talking about combining those, usually people find satisfaction in one area of their life or another. And in reality, that's half your life. So you might as well be satisfied in both areas. The degree of satisfaction people attain from work is proportional to the degree to which they have been able to implement their self-concept. How well does work fit their self-concept? And that's kind of what I call transcending dichotomies. And the last one, work and occupation provide a focus for personality, organization. For most men and women, although for some persons this focus is peripheral, incidental, and even non-existent. Then other things come into play, such as leisure activities, and homemaking may be central. So what he's saying is, if this doesn't work, then we focus on other things, like maybe a hobby, a leisure activity. Maybe we just look forward to the weekend, and that becomes our focus. But that means, our work week is not really our focus. All right, so those are the 14 basic assumptions. I think they're pretty straightforward. There's no, but you I don't know whether they'll show up, how they'll show up on those larger exams. If I had to narrow it down, it's really about that good fit. He just expands it a bit more than I think Holland did. Career doesn't equal a vocation, but a vocation does equal a career. He encouraged us to move from focusing on vocation to focus on career, to look at the big picture. Okay, then he talks about 3 aspects of career development. And his first one is lifespan, the life course of a person encountering a series of developmental tasks to fulfill. This reminds me a lot of Erikson. Okay, remember in Erikson's life stages of development, in each stage, they kind of had a task to fulfill. Okay, so trust versus mistrust. All right, we kind of have to gain trust in others, you know, in order to move positively to the next stage. Okay. So he talks about different age stages. Okay. So he walks you through developmental stages by personal age, just like Erickson might, but here he applies it to career. So he's got different stages of career development. The first stage, growth. Developing self-clarity as well as a basic understanding of the working world. So this is a pretty young age. 3 substages, fantasy, interest, capacity. Child's curiosity may lead them engaging in occupational fantasies, but will lead them to explore their environment and learn about work and their capacities and interests. So play, you know, children make believe to be all kinds of different, you know, professionals. One day, you know, they're a police officer. Another day, they're something else. You know, I remember that my daughter, who's very small for her age, identified with the rabbit on Zootopia, who was a police officer. And she overcame all of these obstacles. And, you know, then so we had to have, you know, she wanted a police officer birthday, a Zootopia birthday. And we just happened to be in Chick-fil-A, and there was a table of police officers eating lunch there. And she walks over to them and invites everyone to her birthday party. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm really going to have to do some cleaning at home. And, you know, but fortunately they declined and gave her stickers. You know, then, you know, I decided, oh, you know, it's time to make a change. So I bought some other movies like Dr. Dolittle, and now she wants to be a vet. I'm perfectly happy with that. Invite any vet over that you want. All right. Exploration, marked by the process of crystallizing and specifying occupational preference. So as we get older, we begin to commit ourselves to 1 or 2 fields and begin to focus our attention on those fields. So he or she might would enjoy building upon the occupational and self-information acquired during the activities of the growth stage. Specification selects job or professional training for a specific career. Okay, so crystallization, I'm kind of narrowing my interests. And then specification, I'm going to figure out, okay, how am I going to get there? Establishment, 3 tasks: stabilizing, consolidating, and advancing. So stabilizing, we evaluate whether or not his or her preferred career provides a proper amount of opportunity for self-concept expression. Okay, so is this going to complement my self-concept? I'm going to be able to express myself genuinely. Consolidating, focusing on becoming a dependable producer, developing a positive reputation, advancing, progressing through one's career path. So C is kind of like really an important area where we kind of choose, we get there, and we begin a career. And then maintenance, D, presents 3 tasks: holding, updating, and innovating. So yeah, we're maintaining our career, and then we're going to continue learning, and we're going to become innovative and add a creative aspect to our careers and maybe give back to the profession. And then finally, disengagement, you know, we're going to slow down, deceleration, we're going to think about retirement planning, and then we're going to retire. Retirement used to be between the ages of 55 and 65 in general. But now it's normally between 65 and 70. So things have really changed as far as retirement, contemplation, and of course, Social Security and medical benefits have a lot to do with when somebody can retire. I know that I had planned my retirement based on my third child's graduation from whatever higher ed. And then 5 years later, we had our fourth child, and that bumped my retirement up 5 years. He talks about life space. It's a broad term, 9 major roles throughout life. And of course, not everybody takes on these roles, and that's okay. We have to remember, you know, he started this back in World War II, so it's slightly outdated. But son or daughter, student, what we do something for leisure, hobbies, citizens, meaning giving back to our community, workers, spouse, that's one not everybody has. Homemaker, not everybody has that. Parent, not everybody has that. Hopefully, we'll all be able to retire at some point. So, you know, this doesn't include everybody. Everybody's different, but it's a generality that he came up with. And then there's a little thing about self-concept. Picture of the self in some role. When we picture who we are, we usually picture ourselves in different domains. Do I picture myself with another person? Do I picture myself in a certain career? Do I picture myself doing certain leisure activities, hobbies, traveling, whatever it might be? You know, so we each have a self-concept for different parts of our lives. You know, is it accurate? Can we get there? What's realistic? What's not realistic? What's a good fit? How am I going to get there? Then how am I going to maintain it? All right, that is super. All right, questions, comments? How's everybody feeling? Remember, it's a lot because we have a lot to do in a short period of time. It's a semester that's 5 weeks shorter, but nothing bad's going to happen. You're just going to have to do it over again, and that's not the worst thing in the world if you need to.
Preston?
Yep.
I know you mentioned this previously, but I can't remember for certain. We won't be watching them like in depth together like we did in skills?
Unfortunately, we don't have time.
Okay.
Yeah, but I will watch everybody's videos. Okay. Yeah. I will probably ask for some volunteers and say, would you like to share your video with the class? And we won't watch the whole thing, but we could watch part 1, 2, or 3, just so we can watch some of yours.
It's not scary.
It can't be, once you've been through skills, it's gotta be a piece of cake.
Yeah. It's fine.
All right, we'll see you all later.